a big fish. That's actually a really good fish. It's a big largemouth. Hey guys, Mike here from Binya Outdoors, here to do a tournament preparation video. So what we're doing today is we're actually practicing for the tournament that we're gonna have next weekend. So any good tournament prep actually starts at the boat ramp. This particular body of water is brand new to me. It's the second time I've ever been here. The first time I came, I literally learned nothing. So I made the 3-hour drive to come up here and check it out one more time. So I'm gonna show you guys my lineup right now of what I'm starting with and why I'm starting it, and then we'll hit the water. All right guys, so as I tie here, the first bait I'm tying on is a bait you wouldn't expect on a smallmouth lake, but smallmouth tend to hit fish that are a little bit bigger than you would think. So they will hit bigger baits than you might even consider. So the first thing I'm tying on is a bait I've had some success with, 6 cents trace. It's the 5-inch with the bluegill spawn color. That's a color that I've had a ton of success, and pay attention to that color name because I have 3 other baits that I plan on using today that are in that same color pattern. So it's definitely a color that has been hot for me this year. So that's the first bait. This one right here is going to be used predominantly as a search bait. I'm using it to try to upsize my bite, but also try to draw some fish out of cover, because sometimes they won't bite the big bait, but they will go out and they will chase it back, and that'll give me an idea of where fish are, which is important when you're doing a tournament practice, because you need to know where they're going to be, not necessarily catch them. Catching them isn't really the most important detail, actually. The most important detail is going to be figuring out where they might live so that you can try to find them next time, maybe with a different bait. The next bait, no big surprise to anybody who watches my channel, Kitech Easy Shiner on a belly weighted hook. This one's actually a reaction tackle tungsten. It's actually their underspin. I just take the underspin blade off of it. Gives it a little bit more weight. I like the tungsten style better. I'm just doing a quick retie because the last time I fished this was in the Jigs and Bigs tournament, and I kind of beat this bait up a little bit. So that's going to be the next bait in the list. While I'm tying this one, I'll give you guys a rundown of the ones that I'm not going to retie that are all set. I'm running a black and blue jig. That one's going to be, I think it's a 1/4 ounce jig that I make. It's just on a boss head with a black blue fleck skirt and a black blue fleck chigger craw. I'm going to be running a chatterbait. I actually wanted to run a chatterbait mini, but I don't have any with me. Apparently I left those at home, so I'm not going to be able to run those. Next bait I'm tying up right here, guys, is kind of a significance for the rod too. So FX Extreme Angler Series, medium heavy moderate. I'm going to be running a lot of different crankbaits on this rod. I really want to try to dial in what specific reaction style baits are going to work on this body of water. My teammate Bear Fishing loves to fish finesse. He's more of a wacky Ned rig guy, loves it and excels at it. I'm not as skilled in that type of fishing. So what we do as a team is I typically try to cover all the reaction stuff. He covers all the finesse stuff. We have to stay close together during the tournament. So basically I cover the deep side, work the reaction stuff, and then he works the finesse. So not super power fish, but just a little bandit 1.5 size square bill. This one's actually a silent, and it's in kind of a perch bluegill. It's got the blue back, but it's got the perch sides. It just gives you a little bit of every type of bait fish that's in this body of water. I've had success with this specific bait with smallmouth, so that's the next bait that we're going to tie on. As far as my finesse fishing goes, it's going to be a spinning rod with a Wacky rig, Weedless Wacky from Reaction Tackle, and it's going to be a finesse jig. It's got a little gold green pumpkin-ish skirt, and that's going to be paired up with, I think it's called HH Customs. It's a little tiny craw, and I'll show it to you guys if I catch anything on it. It's like this little tiny craw that has these like little flapper legs, and it's a good little subtle bait. It just gives them a little bit something different than a Ned, because I don't like to fish the exact same stuff that my teammate fishes when we're in a competition, because then we don't know what's working. We're just both using the same baits, and if they don't work, then we both don't catch fish. So we're gonna go get on the water, guys, and try using all of this stuff. I'll tell you what I'm changing to, what my strategy is, and what we're going to do next as we try to figure out this place. Okay guys, so here's the very first details that you have to take into account when you check out a new body of water. What's the water clarity? So I'm looking around and I'm in, I think, probably 4 or 5 feet of water. Fish finder hasn't booted up yet. And I immediately see bluegill right here at the ramp. I am 5 feet off of the ramp. I see a school bluegill right here. I see that I have visibility in about 5 feet of water. That's significant. You need to know exactly how much visibility you have so you know what kind of bait you're going to use, whether you're going to go subtle or you're going to go loud. The other thing that you need to know is what type of forage is here. Well, again, saw bluegill immediately right off the gate. So my guess is right, and that bluegill and perch are probably the main forage, which, to be honest, is not a far stretch due to the fact that, you know, I'm in Vermont, so most of my forage is that. But I also saw the size of the bluegill. They are big. They're pretty good size. They're about a handful. So that tells me that that swim bait I was showing you guys earlier might play. So that's another thing to keep in mind. It's not just the color pattern, it's not just the species, but it's also the size, the profile. It'll give you an idea of what the bigger bass are eating, because something is most likely eating those bigger fish. So you want to have something that mimics what's already here to help you out. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start out right in the access. One of the biggest mistakes I think a lot of anglers make when they break down a new body of water is they just immediately head for deep water. They immediately leave the initial area. And in my opinion, that's the biggest like no-no of any body of water. Everywhere I've ever fished, I have always managed to pull fish out of the access area, and I think it's just due to the fact that it doesn't get pressured, because everybody just thinks they need to leave to go fish somewhere else. So we're gonna play around in this shallow little access area first, and then we're gonna see what happens from there. Well, it's a start, guys, but it's not what we're looking for. Right there is the first fish on a black Wacky rig, black Berkeley Accent General. That hook is buried in that fish's face. And now he's trying to escape through my kayak, which isn't gonna work for him. As soon as he calms down, I'll give you guys a quick look. Pretty fish, but just not the right size. But that again is a Berkeley Accent General. I found that the black, just solid black, not black blue fleck, but actually just solid black, has been really effective for me lately. And I think it's just because of the profile. It's just a contrast thing. The fish don't really have anything to look at. It's just a long black contrast, and I think it kind of mimics a bunch of different species. So we're casting that up against this little lily pad field right here on the edge of the access. It's kind of right at the, what would I consider the mouth of the main bay. And that fish hit that pretty much immediately. So I cast it to the deepest, most pads, and almost as soon as it hit the water, the line started kind of swimming, and I swung on them. But that is something that I think is going to be a thing in this body of water. There's going to be a lot of finesse fishing. This is not a big body of water, so for the tournament you're going to have roughly 6-7 teams trying to navigate a very small area in the scope of tournament fishing. So I'm going to have to really figure out the secret baits, but I need a limit. So I want to make sure that the Wacky rig works, what colors. Maybe everybody won't have solid black. They'll be using different colors, so those fish will get a little bit more accustomed to, you know, your June bugs, your black blues, your green pumpkins. So having slight different colors sometimes will make the difference. Now that fish was tiny, so we're not going to hang out in this area, but I am going to make a mental note where I am and that there is fish here. That fish wouldn't have been even legal to enter in the tournament, but just because there's little fish does not mean there's not bigger fish hanging out with them as well. So we're going to keep working our way up. I'm going to start going with a crankbait in just a minute, work my way along this shoreline, and then we're gonna head out to the deeper water and see what we can. That might be a good fish, actually. That's a big fish. That's actually a really good fish. It's a big largemouth. Well, that works. That is the second time I've caught a fish on this particular tree too, guys. So the last time I was here, I caught a decent bass. So this tree definitely holds fish. It's a pretty decent spot. We're gonna have to pick it apart a little bit and see what available options. See if there's more than one, see if they group in here or not. But yeah, we're gonna put him back in. I'm actually gonna get him on the measuring board. See how big he is? For two reasons. One, I want to get an idea, and also I want to enter him into my BBK monthly. So we're gonna see how long he is. That right there, guys, is a 19 3/4 inch largemouth. Here he is. I'm gonna show him to you. I'm gonna be careful with him because he's got a messed up jaw. Check that fish out, guys. That right there is exactly what we need. We need about 5 of these in the tournament and we'll definitely win. Alright guys, 4th of July, so I have a braid behind me, but another little smallmouth looks like, so that might be a largemouth. Yeah, a largie. Not a bad little fish, guys, but nothing amazing. So, I mean, maybe 12 inches, but nothing that's going to count. Nothing I want to have in the event of a tournament. So, we're going to change things up. I'm actually going to switch colors of my trailer to see if that creates a bite. Now, that was the same kind of pattern, overhead cover, so I'm fishing a lily pad field, 6 feet of water, and ultimately just Wacky rig dead sticking it. But we're gonna try a different trailer and see if that helps. All right guys, so I decided to make a move. This is probably something I wouldn't normally do in a tournament, but I went to the other side of the lake and I'm gonna try to fish that shoreline. Now this shoreline is deeper than that shoreline was. I got all the way up to the opposite end of the ramp, and I have fished this area before. Like I said, I came here once before and I didn't like anything I saw over here. So this is pretty much the proverbial line of area that I'm not going to fish. Anything from here back towards the area I started is going to be where I fish. Now I'm going to try to work some deeper baits and work the shoreline. This side has way more docks, and I really do enjoy fishing docks, and especially when there's conditions like there is right now, where it's very, very warm, no clouds. There's a little bit of wind starting to kick up, so that could help. But overall, what we're going to do is we're going to dink and dunk the docks with a jig, a Ned rig, and then we're also going to try a sneaky bait that I'm going to put on in just a moment, and we're going to see if that gets any fish interested as well. But other than that, after we try a few of these docks along this shoreline, we're actually going to switch things up, go to a lipless, go to a square bill, chatterbait, and just do all reaction all the way back to that tree that we caught with the one on earlier, and then we're going to check that tree again. Okay guys, so this one right here, another largemouth, under a dock, combined with the other fish, this one's not going to be a monster. It's not going to be one that's really going to get me far in a tournament, but he is fairly long, so he would be legal. And honestly, I've come full circle again. I came back to the other shoreline. Like I said, I was on the opposite shoreline, worked my way back around, back towards the main area, and I tried a June bug, I tried a black blue, I tried a bunch of different profiles, I tried a chartreuse green and black swirl. Now I don't know if it's the color or if it's the fall rate of the max scent worm, but the max scent worms seem to be the bait to use, and I think it might be the fall rate because, you know, that fish wasn't in the open, he wasn't out in the front, he was underneath that boat. I had to skip all the way up under. I casted to the motor, I casted to the front of the boat, I casted around the side of the pontoon, not one bite. Once I got it up underneath, that's where that fish was hanging out. So they definitely do the sit deep back underneath and wait for something to fall in front of them, and that's how I got that fish, and it's actually how I got a bigger fish the last time I was here. So that tells me that anytime that there's like overhead cover, like a good dock or a pontoon boat, it's worth skipping deep inside and not necessarily working the outside, because those fish are really just waiting for something to come right to them. They're looking for that delivery bite instead of the come and get it situation. So that's a good piece of information, you know, when there's pontoon boats, there's docks, I know I need to skip way up under. That a lot of times that's where those fish are going to be, so that's how I'm going to approach the dock first. Rather than working it around the edges, I'm going to cast into it first and then work the edges second, because it does seem like that's where the big ones are hanging out. All right guys, so we're going to end the video right here. Kind of want to go over what I learned, and hopefully I'm able to apply this on tournament day. What I learned was I eliminated a lot of water. So the first time I was here, I eliminated the opposite end of the body of water from the access. That area I was not really interested in. It very well could play if I find that they're in shallow grass, but I really just don't think we're gonna go all the way down there. We're gonna focus our efforts on this side of the ramp side. The other thing I learned is that most of the docks here are in super, super shallow water, and from what I can tell, the majority of them are not very productive. So you need to fish the deeper side. So anything that's submergent cover, even that one big fish I caught was in the deeper side of that tree. Every fish I did catch was on the deeper side of the vegetation, you know, so it's a good theme to be aware of. They were all deeper than the bank. They weren't right up against tight to the bank like I would have expected. I also learned that there is a lot of highly aggressive perch in here, but there doesn't seem to be as many bluegill as I thought when I was looking from the ramp. There's a lot of perch though. Every time I casted a reaction style bait, it came back with a cloud of perch. So I have to take that into consideration. I might have to think about getting some perch colored baits, make sure I have those style. I tried changing up and running 3 different colors of swim jigs. I tried 4 different colors of square bills. I tried a chatterbait. I used a lot of different techniques, none of which really produced. Small, big, varied sizes, nothing in a reaction style bite seems to be working. Now that may be because of the fact that we are fishing in 4th of July conditions, which is heavy pressure, heavy activity on the water, a lot of boats driving around, a lot of people screaming, yelling, having a good time. So that may be having an effect on these fish. And I'm not going to necessarily not have reaction baits at the tournament. I'm just going to pare things down, and I'm actually going to be more subtle. I'm going to have more fluorocarbon. I have a feeling that sometimes these fish are probably a little bit line shy. I'm going to downsize all my reaction baits, you know, mini max chatterbaits instead of the full size chatterbaits, 1.5 square bills instead of the 2.5s, things like that, you know, 1/4 inch swim jig instead of a 1/2 ounce. Those are the different little touches that I learned seem to have a better effect. Now, granted, I didn't catch any bass, but what I did notice is I was getting more of a reaction from everything. Perch, bluegill, any little fry bass were chasing the smaller baits back, and they were just ignoring the big baits. Now, the only big bait I did have some activity on was that swim bait from 6 Cents. That bait did get a little bit of attention, so that's one that's going to be tied on for the tournament as well. I guess moral of the story here, guys, is that I learned what water I don't want to fish. I learned that this is going to be a take your time, grind your way through, and pick your spots and pick your battles type of tournament. You're not going to be able to just cast, get a limit early. It's going to be one of those tournaments, I think, where the guy who gets a limit early and then is able to upsize and maybe gets one, maybe two kickers, like the one I caught originally, that's going to be the guy who wins the tournament. So that's our game plan going forward. Be on the lookout for that tournament video. It'll be out the same week as this video. I try to release them the same week just so you guys can see the before and after results. I want to thank you guys for coming along with me. I really appreciate you taking time to watch this video. If you haven't already, hit that like, hit that subscribe, and as always, let's get out there and catch more fish.